Corey, I want to talk to you about something real quick.
You've been waiting
Corey,
this entire time?
what?
You've been waiting this entire time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Corey, I don't know a whole lot about America. And John, maybe you're in the same boat because we're in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that like all those immigrants were eating dogs and cats in America.
In Ohio, specifically.
Yeah.
Is it
Where I live.
Springfield, Ohio?
Yeah, I live in Columbus, Ohio. Springfield is a little ways away, but not terribly far.
Corey, how many immigrants have you seen eating dogs and cats and pets?
I'm just saying that anything is edible with the right preparation.
But have you seen immigrants eating dogs and cats and pets?
I like how you always are essentially putting me in the spotlight to defend my country, and I have no idea why you insist on doing this.
Because your country needs defending, and nobody else is
By
defending
me?
it. Somebody has to well, on the podcast, who else is going to defend it? John, why does America think that immigrants are eating the dogs and cats and pets?
Because America sucks.
No, because he saw it on TV.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
You know what? The best part about this intro is we're a month late. But I'll tell you this: the beauty of this is nobody's going to forget this.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me are Dylan and John. How are you doing, guys?
Did you like that intro?
It was something.
I waited like 2 hours.
You certainly did.
I was ready to
I
go,
imagine
man.
you were just vibrating.
As soon as I saw that fucking thing, I had to talk to people about this. I'm like, did you see that Donald Trump just said?
There's some really unfortunate news I have to pass on to you. Much like Dave Grohl, who just told the world, by the way, I'm a dad again, cheated on my wife. Oops.
Don't you love how he used to be known as the nice guy Rock? And you're like, that one's going to take a hit.
This isn't the first time he's done stuff like that either.
What?
Well,
Yeah, I heard something
his
like
first marriage ended in
similar fashion.
Without
but
a baby.
Could be the third
but,
marriage.
You know.
This could lead to a third marriage, right?
I don't think he's married.
I'm sure that if it did, then the pattern wouldn't repeat itself.
No, this is the end of it.
Yeah.
For sure. The third time's a charm, right? That's what they say.
Isn't it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
I thought it was
Fool
you
me.
can't get
Fool me 3 times, can't be fooled again.
There you go.
That's it.
There you go.
I'm familiar with the American.
This is the most topical intro to this show.
Which is going to be so out of date when people listen to this.
What is wrong with us today? Jesus Christ.
We have never ever done a topical intro. It's always been whimsy and wonderful bullshit that we just talk about. It's never been like, by the way, I've just seen the world today. It fucking sucks ass. You think that sucks ass? Well, here we're going to talk about some suck ass characters in Marvel comics or whatever, you know.
Well, so speaking of today's topic,
which is suck ass Marvel characters.
No, it's not suck ass Marvel characters per se.
Well,
so we went into this with a kind of an idea of what we wanted to do, and it wasn't really kind of working out the way that we wanted it to work. So anyway, because it's October, it's the spooky month, we're going to talk about just kind of horror-related comics and what have you. So there's a lot of those kind of events going on at the moment in the world of DC and Marvel, as well as the other publishers that are putting things out. So one of those things currently is the Venom War in Marvel. Have you guys been doing anything with Venom War?
I think that we talked about not the Venom War specifically, but like a lot of the old Venom stuff that was happening like a few months ago, and I checked out because I was involved with the whole what was the guy's name, John? What was the guy's name? The
Null?
The what? Are
you thinking of Null?
Yes, that guy.
Symbiote king?
Yeah. So when he came back to Earth, and then he fought Venom, and then they had a big thing, and then Venom became him, and then all that stuff, and then Carnage got a big deal, and then Carnage came after them. I paid attention to a lot of that, and then all of that made me just check out of Symbiotes forever. it was just too much. So at some point, I haven't kept up with what's happening recently, but I know in my head and in my heart that it's just not for me. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but I'm pretty sure I don't like it.
Well, if you don't like Null, you'll be super glad to hear that it was revealed in the latest Venom trailer that was released earlier today that Null's going to be the bad guy in the third
Well,
movie.
here's the thing. It's not that I don't like Null. That's not the issue. I thought that was a good idea. The way they handled it, I didn't like.
I can understand where you're coming from because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where Venom now is so far removed from
From Venom.
where the guy he was when he was introduced, and or the
Yes.
symbiote or alien. Basically, yeah, it's
Not the
a
same.
very, very different Venom to what
Right.
traditionalists might
You and me.
prefer.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it still has its merits. I think it's like that whole run has been interesting just to see how different it is, basically, because like
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't just been like doing the same old stories as we saw in the past, but it's sort of built a whole brand new mythos for Venom and the symbiotes and all that kind of jazz. And some might say it didn't need that, but at the same time, why not try and do something a bit bigger and more, I don't know, attention grabbing with Venom?
I mean, I'll agree with that, but like, it's something I've said on this podcast before, but something I've noticed about Marvel Comics the last couple of years that annoys me is that they're not just out there to tell good stories. They're out there to tell like, this is the biggest Venom story you've ever heard, or this is the biggest whatever. They're always like one-upping themselves in terms of like bigness, in terms
Mm.
of grandiosity. And that always annoyed me because if you think about a guy like Venom, I know obviously his like roots are he's a symbiote from an alien planet, but deep down he's just a guy that fucking hates Spider-Man. And then
Hmm.
you're like, well, why have we already told all of the stories we can with him hating Spider-Man? And there's a lot of like Marvel stuff like where it seems like the end goal is just to tell like a big giant grandiose story, and it makes me sad because I feel like, well, have we just stopped telling like ground level fun stories? Like, do they always have to be like fucking galactic, grandiose, incredible, magnificent storylines? Can they not just be a little bit more sensible and down to earth and like straightforward? You know what I mean? Like, to me, the last couple of years, it's just everything's just been so giant and big and magical and crazy, and I'm like, we don't have to do that.
If I could interject real quick,
Yes, you may.
this is what annoys me about the Spider World right now, and why I can't read anything that's Spider-Man or Venom related. Because it's just like Venom War, and it's like, okay, on paper, it's Eddie versus his son Dylan for who gets to keep the Venom symbiote. But it's also like, but Liz Allen's also involved, and she has a symbiote, and Black Widow's there, and she has a symbiote, and then there's
Whoa,
Flash
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Thompson with
whoa.
his symbiote.
Whoa, 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 whoa. First of all, didn't Liz Allen die? And then also, why does Black Widow have a symbiote?
I was looking at the Wikipedia article, and it says Black Widow has the Widow symbiote. And Liz Allen talks to Flash Thompson, and she's Misery and has the Misery symbiote. So it's
like
just like and like there's Carnage is involved in this too, but it's a Cletus Cassidy clone, and it's just like
why?
this is like why I can't get into Venom, because like it's just, and it's like the movies as well. Like who's Venom gonna fight? Another person with another symbiote. It's like the Marvel problem, where it's like, who are the Marvel characters going to fight? Somebody with their exact same fucking power. Iron Man's always going to fight a dude in an Iron Man suit, except for the last movie where the guy had turned his body basically into an Iron Man suit. Captain America is going to fight somebody else that's just as skilled as he is, and Thor is going to fight another godlike character, and it's just styles clashes are so important. And like the
Well,
Spider-Man world isn't much better because in the Spider-Man world, they keep doing shit in the Spider-Verse.
But that's what I was gonna say to you. Is like, well, do you like Spider-Man because Spider-Man fights like other animals? It's not a style clash so much as it's just like he's fighting an octopus or he's fighting a scorpion.
Mhm.
No, but those people
He's-
have different power sets.
Right.
Like the Spider shit is just like these are just different versions of him from alternate worlds, and I have no interest in these other people.
Mm.
Right, but that's one part of it, though. Like mainly, if you look at Spider-Man, like if you look at Thor, a lot of the time Thor is always fighting other gods. But if you look at Spider-Man, he's always fighting like other animals or other villains or other street level crooks or
See,
mob
I'd be
bosses
fine
or
with
stuff
him
like that.
fighting street level stuff, but he's not fighting street level stuff in these Spider-Verse crossovers.
Well, in the films, he's not. In
Well,
the
no, in most of
comics,
the event
and that's
comics, he tends to be involved
well,
with these
like,
other universes.
that's what I mean about the comics is that like it just seems too like grandiose, and this it
Yes.
comes across way more with
Well,
Spider-Man
that's what
than
I was saying.
all
Like,
the other ones.
it makes it difficult for somebody to just start reading Spider-Man.
Yes,
Plus, every
it's
now and then I just pick up something like, what the fuck's a jackpot?
yes, it's so much.
I have
It's
to
so
read
much more
what that was,
grandiose
and I was
with
like, what, how
Spider-Man
stupid is
because
this?
when you see Spider-Man doing all this stuff, you're like, why isn't he just Spider-Man? Like, why can't he just be like the ground level fucking cool ass kid who just like beats people up? Like, they make Spider-Man too grandiose, and that to me hurts that character. And like I've said, they've done it with so many other characters, and to a worse degree. Like Venom's just one of them, but like they've done it to so many other Marvel characters where they just try to make these epic storylines that are really cool and end up with a crossover. But you're like, well, why not just the ambition goes too far. I think they just need to just make him like a fun character to read.
So
You
you weren't
know?
here for this, but the episode that was just John and I, we were talking about the Marvel architects and like kind of the things that they were known for, and we were talking about Matt Fraction and the big crossover event that he did. Something, what was
Fear
it?
itself.
Fear itself, where just the gimmick was everybody got a Thor hammer.
Mm.
Yes.
So it's like, why is it like we were gonna do a review or a conversation about Blackest Night, which was a DC event, and that one is everybody gets lantern rings. And it's like,
Yeah.
why is this like the gimmick? Why, why is it? Is it just we're gonna devalue one person's thing by letting everybody have it now too?
I agree with
It
that.
drives me fucking crazy.
Yes, I don't get why they were like, well, everybody can have magic hammers, and then you're like, well, if everybody can have magic hammers, what's the deal with Thor's magic hammer?
And why don't they get to keep their magic hammer? Do they have
Right.
withdrawals because they no longer have the magic hammer? Like
But
that's
also-
shit that you can actually make an interesting story out of.
But also, if somebody else picks up a magic hammer, are they the only people that can pick it up? Because
Yeah.
with Thor, he's the only one worthy of picking up that hammer. So if those other magical hammers can be picked up by the Thing or the Hulk or whatever, does that mean they're the only people worthy of picking up those hammers? What happens to those hammers after they're done with them, right?
So like
can
it feels
anybody
like
just
it's a
pick up this
Marvel
magic
problem
hammer?
to me. It just feels like a Marvel problem to me because I also remember like there are events where it's like all of the Hulk characters are going to fight together, and it just exposes the fact that you have way too many characters that are too similar to other characters. Like if this is your big idea for how to incorporate them all, it's like we're just going to have every character like Hulk and Scar and Red Hulk and She-Hulk and Red She-Hulk and Atom Bomb or A-Bomb, which was when Rick Jones was able to turn to Abomination. Like all of them are going to fight. Like that just shows me you have way too many characters that are duplicates of one another.
Right. There's
It's
too many
not
Hulks,
interesting
right?
storytelling to me. Yeah. And the whole point of the Hulk was he was fucking alienated and like alone.
Mhm.
He's the fucking Hulk. That's the point.
So we're doing very badly talking about horror characters because it just turned us bitching about event comics. But
No, that's the whole episode now. We've changed our minds.
yeah, that's what happens when you get to talk about whatever episode. But yeah, I'm thrown off by it because we were talking about like other events that we could talk about too. I mean, you have Venom War, which is currently going on. They just did that event. God, I can't remember the name of it, but it involved Blade.
Is it Blood Hunt?
Blood Hunt. Blood Hunt just wrapped up. That was all vampires. DC has these sort of Elseworld miniseries they keep putting out, which is like DC versus zombies or DC versus vampires. Have you guys read a lot of horror comics that may not necessarily be big two?
Nope. I read a Spider-Man comic that was about Morbius that was really, really good. And I wish I could remember what it was. But the idea was that like there was this like disabled character who would go up to his rooftop and they would look out onto New York City and would see Spider-Man swinging around and was just amazed by it. And one day, I think it was Michael Morbius or some kind of vampire-esque character creeped up on him because he was disabled and was an easy victim, I guess. And Spider-Man came and saved him, and he always remembered that. And that was the whole issue. Was just the whole like from his point of view, and it was drawn really well. It was written really well. I always remember that like a lot. But I don't. That is pretty much the extent of my horror comic book style experience.
How about you, John?
I mean, one of my favorite sort of graphic novels that I own and have read like several times is From Hell, the Alan Moore like series. Basically, like putting forth his theory on the identity of Jack the Ripper and like the real sort of like reasons that a guy was going around London in the late like whenever it was 1880s or whatever, like murdering prostitutes. And yeah, it's just a really creepy comic book, like but it's also so detailed and so like well thought out that as creepy as it is to read, like it sort of makes sense as like a theory on what was going on, like where the origins of this murderer came from. And yeah, it's really well put together. Highly recommend it. And then they made a really bad movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, didn't that make an adaptation with Johnny Depp?
Yes.
What was
Johnny
the movie?
Depp and Heather Graham. It was called From Hell as well.
Oh, wait. Did I see that? I saw this really bad Johnny Depp film in the cinema one time. So I remember I went there with a girl, and we were the only two people in the cinema, and we were like, "This is bad." And then we watched the film, and we were like, "This is bad." It was a bad film. Was that From Hell?
Might have been.
Maybe. Was Helena Bonham Carter in that too?
No.
What am I thinking of?
Wow. Oh, God. It could be anything. If it's Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, there's a what's
What's
your flavor?
Bad films.
Maybe it was Sweeney Todd.
No, it was.
It
You would
wasn't.
remember if it was a
wasn't Sweeney
musical.
Todd. It's not Sweeney Todd. But anyway, the point is,
Did it
I
involve
saw a
him being
film.
Did it involve him being in a cabin?
It had vampires in it.
Oh, was it something Shadows?
Maybe
The adaptation of Dark Shadows.
Dark
Yes.
Shadows.
Yeah,
I think-
Dark Shadows was a soap opera from back in the day that was
Mm.
infamous because it was only done in one take. So if the actors fucked up their lines, they just fucked up their lines. And the main actor, the character that Johnny Depp played, was notorious for stumbling over his words. And yeah, no, if you ever get an opportunity to look at some like old like 1960s like soap opera shit, it's completely enjoyable for that reason.
Was that part of the gimmick? Because I remember watching that film and being like, "This is one of the worst films I've seen in the cinema."
No, I think it was just Tim Burton trying to be quirky.
Okay, because it was. I like Tim Burton. I like Johnny Depp. I like Helena Bonham Carter. Bad film.
Yeah, no, I think it was just
That's
him trying to make a Disney-esque movie.
okay. Well, it was not good.
It was. Gotta give him credit for that.
I don't have
Just
to give him any credit.
when we were like talking about events, we mentioned Blackest Night, which the gimmick with Blackest Night was the Black Lantern battery appeared, and with it, Black Lantern rings were going out into Earth and other areas and resurrecting the dead to fuel the Black Battery. So like that's how they DC like ended up bringing back a lot of characters so you could like see them once more, like the like Aquaman, who'd been dead, was resurrected as a Black Lantern and chasing after his ex-wife so that he could rip her heart out to feed the Black Lantern battery. So it was done as a zombie movie essentially. But that was around, and then shortly after that was the X-Men storyline Necrosha, which kind of had a similar deal, if I'm not mistaken, John.
Yeah, basically. I think it was sort of Celine was involved somehow, and she was, I think, bringing back all the mutants who died on Genosha, possibly, and like feeding off the power from all of these dead people coming back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's familiar.
But it wasn't very good. I was not a fan of that storyline.
I never read it, but I heard about it. The Crochet thing.
Yeah, it sort of crossed over with like X-Force that was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Black Ops X-Force, right?
Yeah, that was a good book. But
Black
yeah,
ink on black paper. It was dark as shit.
Yeah.
Is it Eli Bard stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Vampire.
Indeed.
Which ties into our spooky theme.
So let's bring up an interesting character in the Marvel world. Dracula is a legit character in the Marvel continuity.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Dracula for Marvel?
Dracula in Marvel?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Dracula in Marvel.
I don't care much for it.
He turns up every now and then.
Yeah.
But like the thing about the Marvel universe is that they have so many other fucking crazy ass characters that they were like, no, we're gonna just incorporate Dracula into our universe, and you're like, well, cool, but if you think about it, so many other characters are like way more impactful and powerful and interesting than Dracula in the Marvel universe that you're like, well, why would you introduce this? Like, what benefit does it have you other than to turn Jubilee into a vampire to have Dracula as one of your characters? Like, it's a fun. Oh, he's a popular character in pop culture, and now he's in these the Marvel character universe. We get this. This is a fun crossover kind of thing. But like, really, like, what benefit does it have to have the actual Dracula in Marvel comics? You know, that's what I think, anyway.
So, who is your favorite comic book vampire?
I guess Morbius,
You guess Morbius.
but he's better than the film, though. That's what we need to establish. This
Yeah.
we need to really establish the fact that we've been pretty hard on the film based on the character of Michael Morbius, and for good reason. Because the film itself, not good. But I've always enjoyed the character of Michael Morbius because I feel like that's a really good modern interpretation of the Dracula character. That's somebody who is a scientist, that's somebody who's very smart, that's somebody who wants to try to change his own problem that he has. He's cursed with this issue, and he tries to make himself better, and he ends up making it worse, and he ends up making himself into a kind of Dracula person where he has to like suck people's blood, and he becomes a vampire-esque character. And it's a really interesting kind of play, and then him working with Spider-Man the good thing about Michael Morbius is that he's never like a villain, but he's always a guy that needs sustenance. He needs to live. He needs to exist. And the way he has to do that is because of his own machinations. He has to like have human blood. That's just the rules. So it gives you a lot of moral questions between him and Spider-Man, where Spider-Man's like, you're not a bad man, but I also can't allow you to suck blood out of people for no reason. You know?
Don't you be sucking people.
I don't want you sucking people right now. That's whatever you do in your private life is whatever, but in the public domain, they can't be having that. And I always like that as a character trait because you always see Michael Morbius as like never a fully fledged villain. Because what he does from like a necessity point of view. He does it because he wants to still exist. And from a Spider-Man point of view, you can't really deny that fact. You can't willingly kill this man, but you also can't willingly let him kill other people to let him exist. So you have to try to find a good balance between keeping Michael Morbius alive and stopping him from just indiscriminately sucking the blood out of people.
John, do you have a favorite vampire in comics?
Not really, because I don't tend to enjoy the vampire storylines. Like, you brought up Jubilee getting turned into a vampire. There was like most of the comics I read that like cross over with the vampire world. Like I always kind of dread those storylines because it's not that interesting to me. But I mean,
You don't like Morbius?
Not especially.
Okay.
I wasn't a big fan of his character on the animated show back in the day, and I think that's sort of bled into my comic book reading.
You know what? I give you credit for that. I didn't care for him in the cartoon either.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I
His
really
little
did.
sucker hands. Oh, my plasma.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Oh,
Yep. I was on
it's
board.
so hard being vampire. My plasma.
It is hard being a vampire with the plasma.
The hands were so much worse than just having him have sharp teeth.
Yeah.
Think about how much harder it must be for a vampire to be sucking blood out of you from your hands and out of your
From his
neck. You know what I
hands.
mean?
Does that mean he
Gotta-
can't pick stuff up without his hands trying to suck it as well?
No,
He's
only
just
only if he's picking up bloody
It's
stuff.
a nightmare to go grocery shopping with him.
Yes.
He just goes to the produce line and rinsing the
If
place.
he's getting a steak, bad news. But if he's getting like milk, fine. That's fine. You know?
I tried to squeeze the watermelon to see if it was ripe, but I just drained it. Oh,
I
it's so
ruined
sad.
it. I
I've
still love
ruined
the
it.
nutrient. No, but he steals plasma. There's no plasma in a watermelon.
No, it's just water. But what is water but the plasma of the watermelon?
I don't think that science we're able to accurately depict in this podcast.
That's okay. I'm not going to read any textbooks about watermelons.
Good, because neither are we.
Plus,
All right,
he's using
What
hand
is
suckers
plasma when it comes to fruits and vegetables? Well, really, it's
Just the
water.
juice. So let's divert from vampires and we'll go with werewolves then. We'll hit the classics. Do you have a favorite werewolf character?
Werewolf by Night. But because we talked about off camera, off mic, I guess, we talked about silly names for characters.
I was just thinking that.
Werewolf by Night's real name is Jack Russell. Like, fuck you, man. Unbelievable. If I were to pick a real werewolf character, I would say John Jameson.
Hmm.
From
I was going to
Spider-Man.
ask about him.
He was he turned into a werewolf. But that's
For
the
the
only
Moon
one
Rock,
I've ever
right?
like properly read. What?
With a moon rock, right?
Yeah. Because he went to space.
But he
John
wasn't a
Jameson
wolf
went to
man, he
space.
was a man wolf.
He was man wolf. Correct.
Important distinction.
We have to distinct that because
Not Spider Man, a man spider.
no, the two different characters. Spider-Man and Man Spider. So then you have man, wolf. So yeah, they that was the only one I ever like properly read.
So,
Was
all right, let's throw this out there then. Traditionally, it is just somebody who turns into this lichen type character through things that are outside of their control. Maybe they're a totally normal, nice person, but something happened to them and they transform and are unable to control themselves. Would you count the lizard as a werewolf in that sense? Even though he's not a wolf.
but in that kind of like were character.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's like a lichen,
then-
sort of
well,
the
then
lichenish character.
Well, then would you count the Hulk as a were character?
No, because I think it has to be like animalistic.
Well,
'Cause
no.
it's-
Well, isn't the anger of a person an animalistic characteristic?
What are the zoos like in the UK where you just have men in cages?
No,
but I
no.
know what Dylan's saying
Not-
though. Like it, like
I
it
understand
makes
what he's
him
saying
more
too, but I
bestial.
feel like we're
Yeah.
splitting hairs at that point.
No, I don't think we are splitting hairs. What you're saying is a man has some kind of change in his body that turns him into another character. And if you're the
But
Hulk,
see-
it's when you get really angry, you turn into the Hulk. If you're a werewolf, what you're saying is if all it takes is you look at the moon and you turn into a werewolf, that is not how far away is that from you getting angry and then turning into the Hulk?
And it's
But
a
I feel
physical
like
change
the
as
Hulk
well.
is a
It's a physical it's
Well, I
a
think the
physical
Hulk-
change that you can't control.
the Hulk is a better representation of Jekyll and Hyde though, because his was this, it was that science experiment that went wrong, and he's a completely different person. When Connors turns into the lizard, it's more of a primal animal
It's
instinct
a
sort of
completely
driven thing.
different person.
I feel like you are being so combative today for some reason, Dylan.
No, but whoa. Are you not? Am I wrong?
No, because I would consider Hulk more of a Jekyll and Hyde situation.
But
The
there-
lizard doesn't traditionally speak very much, whereas the Hulk does.
He does. The lizard does speak. The Hulk didn't used to speak. The Hulk speaks now. The lizard does speak, but he speaks in a very lizardy kind of disjointed way. Not the same as an educated man like Kurt Connors would talk, but the lizard does talk. No, but like every lizard issue I've read, he's like obviously animalistic, but he talks. He does talk, and you can see the difference between the Kurt Connors side of things, the very educated man, and the more animalistic side of the lizard that still can talk and communicate, but it's a little bit more primal. And it's the same with the Hulk. Whenever you look at the Hulk, you look at Bruce Banner, a very educated, smart man. And then whenever he becomes the Hulk, he is a little bit more primal, more simplistic with his words because his words aren't what's important, it's his actions. So in that case, you can see the parallels between Bruce Banner and Kirk Connors and the Hulk and the Lizard, right?
I guess if we're going with that route, then I would say that Connors would be more of a Jekyll and Hyde situation than he would be a werewolf character then. Because I think to me it's the classification. I don't think I could make an argument for the lizard being more Jekyll and Hyde than I would say like the Hulk being a werewolf.
I agree. I would
Okay.
say the Hulk is closer to the lizard. I think those two guys have a very similar. I like the thing about a werewolf is like the whole idea of the werewolf is it comes out at night. The full moon, that's the gimmick. Whereas with the Hulk and with the lizard, it's more situational. It's not the same as like if one thing happens, this is what happens. With the Hulk and with the lizard, it's more like we have to balance things appropriately, and then if it goes over that, that's when the other thing happens.
So you mentioned Werewolf by Night, and just mentioning the full moon, it does remind me when Moon Knight was first introduced in a Werewolf by Night story, and the original thing was that he would get stronger during full moons. Like he would still be a crime fighter, but for some reason, like when the moon was full, that's when Moon Knight would be really fucking rocking. That just reminded me of that for some reason. But
well, it's a moon though, so
yeah, it's a moon thing. John, do you have any thoughts on were creatures and or Jekyll and Hyde situations?
I mean, I think it's a good source of story material. Like the whole idea of like man sort of losing his humanity and giving into his more bestial side. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what you guys are talking about, like I'm sort of on the fence. I can see where you're both coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say. Well, I mean, I think the Hulk probably is. He tends to be more of a Jekyll and Hyde type character. Like most people would consider him that more than like a were character. But yeah.
But wouldn't you consider the lizard to be the same?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
See, 'cause
Yeah.
that whole conversation kind of turned it for me on that, because I was like, the Hulk's not a werewolf. The Hulk's more of a Jekyll and Hyde. But then, like, as we're talking, like, well, the lizard is definitely more of a Jekyll and Hyde than he was a werewolf.
Yeah.
Because then
Okay.
that also makes Man-Bat from DC a Jekyll and Hyde situation too, which I would also agree with. So it definitely has to have that thing of man pushing science too far and dealing with the repercussions of it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you think about, Jack Russell or the Werewolf by Night, and then the same with John Jameson as the Man Wolf. Those are very situational things. They're very much like, full moon. This is what happens. Like a certain time of month, this specific thing happens. So like you can time it. You can regulate it. Whereas with the Hulk or with the lizard, it's not a regulated thing. You can manipulate that to trigger the other action. You can't manipulate John Jameson to become Man Wolf because it only happens if there's a full moon. You know what I mean? I think that's the kind of difference. If you can manipulate it, it doesn't. It's a Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Would you like to move on to, like, Frankenstein monsters?
Yeah, well, should we? I think we should.
Because there's a couple of them. Marvel
Yeah.
has their depiction of Frankenstein. DC has had two different versions of the Frankenstein monster. There's third if you count Brother Power the Geek, which I reminded you guys of very recently.
Which I feel like we're gonna have to talk about more in the show.
Brother Power the Geek. He
Yeah.
existed for 5 issues.
5.
The writer pissed off the editors with it.
Hi.
Because Brother Power the Geek was like a hippie, and he was constantly running into Nazi bikers and judgmental police officers, and DC was still under the comics code at the time, and they were like, hey, part of the comics code says we cannot depict the police as villains, so you need to knock that shit off.
I am always coming into contact with Nazi bikers.
Yeah.
Like every day.
Some of them are on
Nazi
Wednesday
bikers. Can't get rid of them. Why won't they leave me alone?
So yeah, Brother Power is a mannequin that got struck by lightning and came to life.
Yeah,
I
of
hate
course.
when that happens.
All the time.
Yeah, there's a whole 2 movies in the 80s about that called Mannequin, coincidentally enough. John, you've probably seen them.
I've definitely seen the one with Anthony Hopkins.
McCarthy?
Oh wait, there was. Oh yeah, there was
2 of
that.
them.
Yeah, there was that mannequin movie with
Mannequin.
what's
Andrew
her
McCarthy.
name? Yeah, from Sex and the City. What's her name?
Kim Cattrall.
Sarah.
Kim Cattrall. Yeah, that's the
Oh,
one.
that's not the one I was
In
thinking
fact,
of.
I watched that a few months ago.
What did you think?
Oh,
It was okay, better than I thought it was going to be.
That's a 1987 movie for you.
there he goes.
So yeah, my favorite big Frankenstein person, have a tattoo of the monster and everything. I really enjoy the Grant Morrison Frankenstein Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. / Seven Soldiers version, because it feels very classic, and they've done a lot of really fun stories with it. All right, now this one I know there have been plenty of. Do you guys have a favorite witch?
Scarlet.
I mean, that's the go-to.
Now, mind you, Scarlet Witch's powers are just bending reality, though, right?
Yeah, but that's still like witchy.
Is that really well established? I can't remember if in Age of Ultron that was super established. That's what she was doing.
Well, they've sort of messed with her power set and origins so much over the years. It's hard to keep a track of what is the like official line at this point. Because I'm pretty sure she did have magic based powers as well. And
Yes.
then obviously there was like the bit with like Magneto being revealed as the father, but then oh no, he wasn't the father apparently, and all this stuff. And I think they even said that they're not technically mutants as well. Her and
They have come
Quicksilver.
up with that again. Yeah.
So yeah,
I think they have, or at least, I think so. I think they've gone back and made them like part Inhuman or some nonsense. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
look that up now. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I think they did that. I feel like they did that at least with Scarlet Witch. So they must have done it with Quicksilver, but they're like not technically mutants. And you're like, well, what are they then? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's because I think they were trying to establish why they weren't on Krakoa,
Who cares? That's why.
and then when she was on Krakoa, they killed her.
Well, that's just what happens.
So they killed her, and then they resurrected her.
Well, the problem with Krakoa was whenever they were like, we'll bring back every single mutant. You're like, every single mutant? Because then that means somebody at some point is going to be like, what about this guy? Why didn't this guy come back, right? And then you're going to get into a big hole where you're like, I can't be bothered to write this. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a writer, if you go, I'm going to bring back all the mutants just to bring back the mutants you want to bring back, you're going to get some kind of comic book nerd that goes, excuse me, but what about this guy? Where did he come from? Like, I actually talked to my brother about this. Did they bring back Tyler, who was Cable's son?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Tyler.
He was a mutant. He had a big deal where he stripped he tried to put the adamantium back on Wolverine's bones. He was Genesis. Did he come back? I know that a lot of other very important and very popular X-Men characters, villains and heroes came back after Krakoa. Did Tyler Dayspring? I'm gonna guess probably not, because that would be complicated whenever Cable turns up, right?
Well, that's what's interesting about it, because like when I was just looking up, like trying to verify whether or not she was still considered a mutant or not, it did mention that after she died and was resurrected, she used her powers to update the Krakoa resurrection protocol so that they could resurrect mutants that did not have a Cerebro backup, which included like all 20 million of people who died in Genosha. So she's now the redeemer of Krakoa. It just felt like such an unnecessary story, like looking back. I feel like they felt like, well, she did no more mutants and they're bringing back all the mutants, so I guess we got to have her address this in some manner.
Wasn't that weird how like she was no more mutants and then she became all of the mutants? What a weird story arc that is.
I mean, no, I see where they're coming from. It's
yeah,
a
you
bit
kind
like
of feel like you need to.
yeah, it's like Jean Grey as the Phoenix. You wiped out an entire planet of aliens, like an entire civilization, and so like they had to kind of change the game a bit when they brought it back and say, oh no, it wasn't really Jean, it was the Phoenix in like a copy of Jean's body, while Jean was in a egg on the bottom of Jamaica Bay or whatever it was. And then yeah, so it's like sort of trying to make it right so the hero character didn't wipe out millions or billions of people, or in this case at least giving them an out to sort of bring some of those people back.
I mean, I guess, but like that's not quite what I said though. I mean, the thing about the Jean Grey thing is it was somebody else. They said this is a woman that killed loads of people, and then it turns out the woman who really killed people was a different entity, and then the woman that we thought killed that people was just in a cocoon in the bay. So they're fine. Were we talking about before Jean Grey?
We were talking about our favorite versions of witches, which is what got us onto Scarlet
Oh,
Witch.
Scarlet Witch. Like, that's not the same thing, because what we've established with the Jean Grey thing was that was a different character. Whereas with the Jean Grey thing, it's a CM person. So it's not really the CM comparison, right?
No, I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying like it's a similar situation in terms of how they try to redeem those characters by having like a way of them not carrying the blame anymore. So
Right.
like
Yes. Okay, that's fair enough. I think that Marvel did a very good job like trying to like absolve blame of stuff. If they have a character they like, they try to like absolve the blame of it in a very blasé way. And you're like, well, I mean, we've talked about this in the Jean Grey episode, but you're like, does this count as a good way to absolve Jean Grey of the murders that she did? She didn't really do it. It was just somebody that looked like her. I'm like, well, that's fair enough. You know?
Well, I mean, it didn't work because that was their Claremont's way of trying to write her out, and then the editors came back and said, "You're still gonna have to kill her off."
Right. So that's the thing with the Scarlet Witch is that she killed all the mutants. Well, no, didn't kill, but like she got rid of a lot of the mutants. And then when she came back to Krakoa,
Everyone but 200 of them. That's a good bit, dude.
mhm.
it was more than 200, I think, wasn't it?
No, it
No,
was
no, it was like only
198.
200.
Wasn't that
Yeah.
one? No, whoa. We all know there wasn't 198. We know that it wasn't 198.
Well, yeah, but
All
we're
right.
not gonna give them credit for sloppy accounting on their part.
Correct. There was a load
You know,
they missed.
I know for
right?
a fact Marvel editors did not just sit down and like have a big group
Yeah.
huddle and decide like a draft on what were the mutants that were going to keep their powers.
Which they should have, because that would have made that storyline make sense. But they missed a
Yeah,
lot.
but we wouldn't get to talk about Johnny D or Blue or whatever that guy's name was.
Yeah. We gotta. Yeah, exactly. We gotta keep Johnny D. Right. We gotta keep. What the fuck was that blue guy's name?
Jazz.
Jazz. Good man. We talked about him before.
We did on
Yeah, we
the
did.
Weird Powers episode.
We talked about like one of the shitty X-Men. We talked about Jazz.
Because yeah, it was like, wow, one of the 198 is this guy whose powers
Yeah.
is blue.
What's one of the worst X-Men? Blue guy. There he is. But his redeeming feature is he sells drugs. You know. But like you can see the parallels between like you can see the difference in that Scarlet Witch, like she condemned the mutants and then she's come to the Krakoa and then she's like, well, you know what? Let's redeem myself. Let's let the mutants like live. Let's let them be there. I think that's different from like the whole Jean Grey thing, is what I'm saying. We can move on from this if you want.
I thought we had.
Your way of exiting the conversation.
I feel like we should move on from this.
Do you have any witches you want to talk about?
I mean, Agatha Harkness is the only other witch I can think of.
Ooh, good one.
And as we all know, it was Agatha all along.
Is that going to be
Agatha
a
all
good
along?
show, John? I trust your take.
I mean, I have no idea. It looks pretty disconnected from the main
Everything.
MCU stories and everything. So who knows? Maybe that means, without being weighed down by all that, it can sort of do its own thing and have a bit of fun. But at the same time, maybe the fact that there aren't that many recognizable characters in it might mean people just don't care. So I think it starts pretty soon. So probably by the time this episode goes out, it will have already started. So
It's been critically panned.
yeah, or critically acclaimed. Who knows?
I mean, there's also Morgan Le Fay.
Yes.
She's shown up a lot. She was
Mhm.
wasn't she like the main villain in the Teeny Howard Excalibur run? It was like her and like the Clan Akaba cult.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
But that's okay because Teeny Howard's a boring writer, so if you don't remember the details, totally fine. Completely inconsequential. That's most of what her work has been.
So are we talking about like supernatural characters here?
Yeah, we're talking about like specifically at the moment we're talking about witches, but if you have another one that you want to bring up, by all means.
Well, do we have any more witches, or do you want to talk about somebody else?
We can talk about somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if we're talking about like supernatural characters, right?
Mhm.
Surely we should talk about, at some point, we should talk about Ghost Rider, who is a fucking skeleton on fire that rides a motorbike.
Mm-hmm.
When are we ever going to talk about this guy again?
So
Right?
my thing about that is kind of Ghost Rider falls into where we were talking a little bit about earlier. Like, wow, there have been way too many people with symbiotes. There have been a lot of different Ghost Riders in the last few years alone.
So you think that technically Ghost Rider is a symbiote because he's being taken over by a spirit of hell?
Well, I will tell you this. We had Johnny Blaze for the longest time on his own.
Yes.
And then we got Danny
Danny
Ketch
Ketch?
in the 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we got Robbie Reyes, not in order. We had Robbie Reyes, who has a hot rod.
Yeah.
Then there was the Cosmic Ghost Rider. There was a woman that was part of like a Aztec cult that became
Lady
the Ghost Rider. Lady Ghost Rider, pretty much. During Fear itself, a Nicaraguan woman named Alejandra Jones became the Ghost Rider through a ritual performed. Now we also have Helverine, which is Dakin.
Is he still going?
Yeah. They
Good.
just announced a whole new series for him.
Good. I mean, it's
Yep.
good that he's still alive.
Yeah. That's a lot
That's
that you
nice.
can say. You can't say that about all of Wolverine's children. That's for damn sure.
How many children does he have?
I know he killed almost all of them because
Well,
of.
why wouldn't you?
Whose run was that, John?
I want
was it
to
Jason
say
Aaron?
Jason Aaron. Yeah.
It feels like Jason Aaron, where like he had to go through this sort of John Wick-esque revenge thing, only to find out that the people he'd been killing were his children.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So why did Wolverine kill his children?
I mean, he didn't know they were his children.
That's
He just thought they were mercenaries and assassins that had been sent to kill him.
But
Pretty sure it was
Whoa.
someone messing with him as well, like making him kill all of his children and then revealing they were his children to kind
But
of try and
whenever
break
A real old boy
Dakin,
situation.
whenever Dakin came at him originally, did he know that it was his kid?
Well, I think Dakin announced it.
Yeah.
Or stood off like,
these were like
I'm your
one-off
son,
characters.
bitch, and then stabbed in the head.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, well that's what the kids.
I like to
the
think
other
all of
kids made
Dakin's
the mistake.
characters-
They should have done that.
I like to think that all of Dakin's character traits are just involve him screaming it out very loudly. I'm Dakin. I'm Wolverine now. I'm joined the Dark Avengers.
It
I'm
does
also
seem like that.
bisexual, so feel that way
Yeah.
about stuff.
I don't know if you knew this, but I love girls and dudes.
I have a claw that comes out of my wrist. It's functionally useless, but it looks cool.
It's weird, but it's cool, right? And people are like, I don't think it's cool. I don't know if that is cool.
It looks really
It's weird.
awkward, like to swing with it, but okay.
It's definitely weird. I don't know what benefit that has, but you could
Weird's cool
work
now.
away. I mean, if you think it's cool, that's. I'm not knocking you, but you know, you work away, kid. He's like, yeah, I will. Fuck you. And like, don't. No.
All right, we're on one tonight.
It's a good show. It's a good show tonight.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Anyway.
Okay, here's ghost character. We're gonna
Yes.
talk about ghosts. We'll save the best for last, Dylan, because I know where you're wanting to go with this.
Mhm.
Are you guys familiar with Dead Man?
I think I know the name, but I don't think I've actually read him in anything.
So Dead Man is a ghost, and no one can see him because he's a ghost. And the only way he interacts with people is he has to possess someone to do it. He just recently turned up in Nightwing to help Dick Grayson get over a mental block, where Dick Grayson was suddenly afraid of heights. So Dead Man would possess his body and then take him up somewhere very, very high and just leave him and be like, all right, figure your way out from here. But Dead Man was a circus performer who was murdered, and in order to was basically tasked with assisting the injustices of the world in order to redeem his spirit. So he's a fun character.
What's his name?
Dead Man. His real name is Boston Brand.
So you were gonna leave Dead Man to last?
No, I'm not leaving Dead Man to last.
Okay, cool. Because we I think we have other characters to talk about.
Well, yeah, it's like you said. I knew that there was a character you were wanting to talk about.
I think we're going to talk about that guy later, though. That specific one I'm talking about, we'll talk about him later.
All right, we'll talk about him later. Okay.
But I do have another one we want to talk about really quick tonight if we want to talk about him.
Go for it.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
What were you going to say, Corey?
Well, no, go ahead.
What's a character called Doorman?
Torian.
Have you heard of a character called Doorman?
No, I can't say that I have.
John, have you heard of a character called Doorman?
I was gonna say, isn't he a member of the West Lakes Avengers? Or
The Great Lake Avengers,
Great Lake.
correct.
yes, there you
Great
go.
Lake. Well, they have a lot of different names. So it was the Great Lake Avengers, and then they were the West Coast Avengers, but that they changed their names.
Yes.
Something else. I think they changed the names again to something else. But yes, he was a founding member of the Great Lake Avengers. He is a guy that kind of like funds people to like the dead zone. I don't know what the name of it is in Marvel sense, but like he has death sense, dark force manipulation. He can fly, superhuman durability, immortality, and stuff like that. So like I feel like he's the kind of guy that like he has a lot of like that supernatural element to him, where he's one of those guys where his powers come from not like a human kind of based idea. It's his powers are very much like he's a dead guy, and he represents the dead. You know what I mean? He's part of him being part of the Great Lake Avengers is because it's all of a joke. It doesn't really matter what his powers do. But he's kind of there, I think, kind of there to guide people to the afterlife, because a lot of the joke about the Great Lake Avengers is that most of those people die.
Yes.
Mhm.
I think we have talked about the Great Lake Avengers before on the show, right?
Maybe vaguely.
Yes, I feel like there's been some reference to them, but part of it is one of their characters usually dies in some of their episodes, and the character of Doorman is kind of not a very good representation of death, but like a way to like transition you from life to death, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Like he's the door between life and death. He's the
Okay.
doorman. He's the doorman. And that's where he kind of like plays in. He's a little bit like, we've talked about Ecstatics before, where like
Yeah.
in Ecstatics everybody died. Like every single episode somebody died. And in West Coast Avengers, a lot of people died, and they would just end up going through Doorman. That's just the way it went, you know? So I think if we're talking about supernatural characters, I feel like Doorman's a very good character to talk about, because he's supernatural. Really, he's that character between life and death.
John, what's your movie count at?
I am up to 570.
Very
Nice.
nice.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
John, you made a big jump from where we were last time. I think you were in like the 530s, 540s.
Yeah, it was like 546 or something like that, I want to say.
Very nice. So what was
It should be an even bigger jump next week, because I've got the week off work. So
nice.
guess what I'm doing?
So what was the last movie that you watched?
It was a Ridley Scott movie by the name of Body of Lies, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe.
Well, there you go.
And it wasn't very good.
John, if they want to read your review of Body of Lies or any other review that you have done, where can they find you?
They can find me on Letterboxd at Big John Basky, all one word.
Very nice. John, what's going on in the world of Explodey Plays?
It's all good, man. If this goes up in October, like we assume it will do, then you will see Pikmin episodes, and also B, a couple of episodes about a show called Thief Simulator that should be up in end of September, beginning of October. So it should be Thief Simulator, and then Pikmin, and then you'll see more magic stuff at the end of October/November. So follow Explodey Plays youtube.com/explodeyplays.com/youtube.com/youtube.com/explodeyplays.com.
Yeah, just keep putting it in and hitting enter intermittently. You're bound to get there.
If you just write explodeyplays.com, you'll probably get there.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. We trust you.
Yeah,
You're
it's
smart.
easy. If you have any questions, just email Corey and he'll happily answer those questions.
Yep, you can email us at smarkavengers52@gmail.com. Yes, we do actually have an email address.
We do. Please email us this if you have any suggestions that you want to see for us to talk about, or if you want to say that one of us is an idiot. Please send us an email. We would love to read them. By we mean Corey. Corey would love to read those emails and tell us about those emails. And me and John will definitely listen to them 100%. And be like, well, that's a great email. Thank you for that. And then we'll forget about it and then go on with their lives. So please feel free to email us. And by us, I mean Corey.
All right, and after, if you want to hear anything else of mine, I do a short podcast every week called Large Old Cup, about 28-29 minutes long, stream of consciousness. I just start talking and we end up somewhere that we may not originally have intended to end up. So what's also great is because it's so stream of conscious, I very rarely remember what the last episode was about.
Chocolate.
Well, probably not, because I'm very allergic to it.
Oh yeah, you can't eat chocolate.
No, or peanuts.
Peanuts?
Or peanut
Chocolate
butter.
peanuts? You hate a
Nuts.
Snickers.
Yeah.
You fucking hate a Snickers.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very good. But folks, that is all for us. We will be back next week with another spooky topic, which I think will be what we had intended for originally for this one. It'll be interesting. We're gonna find some really weird and unique and odd spooky characters to talk about.
Yes.
But until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Ooh.
Was that your ghost noise?
That was my ghost noise.
Very nice.